Hey guys, my name is Masha and today I'm going to be showing you how I make a bracelet in real time. So, I just want to preface this by saying that my background is literally a book and it's not that stable, so it might be wobbling throughout the video. It's not the best setup, but it's the only setup I have at the moment, and usually in a video I can edit it out, but since I'm doing this in real time, I'm probably not going to be doing that much editing, so bear with me if this starts wobbling throughout the video. Also, I'll be linking this pattern in the description for you if you want to check it out for yourself, and I'm using a variety of different thread, but this one in the middle is a multicolored Camtex, which I got in Russia, and the one for the background is the sparkly ellep yarn, which I got as a gift package also from Russia. So I wanted to do a video like this because people ask me all the time. Usually in my videos I fast forward all of the knotting just because it makes a better structure for the videos. Today I just wanted to sit down and sort of knot with you guys and just show you what my knotting process looks like when I'm not speeding anything up. So I'm just going through the background knots. I have the pattern up on my phone just to the left. You can't see it on here, but I am looking towards the pattern. Usually when I'm knotting something, I can sort of get in the hang of the pattern by sort of the middle of the pattern, so I don't really need to look at the pattern that much because I sort of already remember it. But here I just have it up for reference. I've only done one, so I haven't really remembered the pattern yet. There we go. I usually always segment knot. I don't like knotting row by row. I feel like it takes up way too much time, so I always try to segment knot. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a whole video on how to read normal patterns, and there was a section of how to segment knot in there that I talked about. But it's basically when you take a bunch of knots and you do them all in one row. So like right here, for example, I'm going to be closing off this section. I'm going to be taking the pink string and doing a line here, similarly to how I did here. So I can take 3 strings in a row and make backward knots onto them with the pink. And that makes it quicker. Your knotting takes up much less time because you're not switching strings, you're literally just taking one string and you're making knots on a bunch of others in a row, and it makes the process more enjoyable, at least for me. I much prefer segment knotting to just knotting row by row. I feel like it's much faster and more interesting. So here on this side I'm also going to be closing off this little circle here. Now when I have a bunch of knots to do, I usually put each string into sort of like a finger, so then I can separate them, like sort of fan them out when I'm making my knots. So I can make a knot onto each individual string and I don't have to separate them later since I've already sort of fanned them out and separated them. I feel like that also allows me to make them a little bit faster. Because that way I'm not only not switching between the strings, I'm also not separating each individual string I need to make a knot on because I separate them before I start knotting. I'm considering doing a video on like bracelet hacks where I would talk about things like fanning out your strings and in your fingers like that. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, because I do have a couple of like just tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years of just like making bracelets that I think might be interesting for you guys, if you know, just to make your knotting process quicker, more enjoyable, things like that. Now here I can see that this knot that I made before sort of started unwinding, and that can sometimes happen, especially with string that has sort of like a metallic in it. This has only a little strand of metallic for the sparkly bit, but still that can sometimes happen. So I like to just like tighten the knot again before I continue with the same string, just to make sure it is nice and secure. Now here again I'm going to be fanning out my strings. Put each one in a separate finger and I sort of fan them out like that. So that way I can make a knot just on this individual string and I don't have to separate the strings each time. Oh, this setup is not the best, I'm sorry. Also, when I'm just knotting on my own, I just make the knot with one finger, like that. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to make knots, I do have that. I'm just showing you what I do when I'm just knotting on my own. So I've done that. Now I need to do the white outline. So I'm going into the second cross. I've done the 3 little dots in between the first cross and the second cross. Now I just have to do the second cross. So I'm using white for the outline. So I'm just gonna start with this white here. And I am referencing the pattern. This isn't just coming from memory. I just have the pattern on the right here. And I'm just glancing forward. But here we go. When I look at patterns, I don't necessarily see the knots. I very rarely look at individual knots. I more look towards how all the strings are moving. So here I can see the white string. You can't really tell here. Let me just pull it up from underneath here as well. So what I'm doing here, this bit is exactly the same as here, and I can see that in my pattern as well. It's represented very well. I'm looking at how the string is moving. So I can see that the string started in the middle at the top point of that sort of triangle, I guess you can call it. And I can see that the string is moving to the right down, and it's moving 3 knots that way. Now on here, on this side, I can see that the string is moving all the way there, and it finishes at this point here. So for this bit, I'm going to take the white string and I'm going to bring it to the left up until that same point. So that's what I'm saying, like when I've already done a little bit of the pattern, sometimes I can just look back to the previous one to determine where the strings should be going. I don't always need the pattern. So specifically for this situation, I could have just looked up there to see where the strings are moving. Because here, like that, you can see that I've just done exactly that. I've just brought my string all the way into the center like that. And then of course it's going to connect with the other one going from there, but I need to finish the edge bit for that. Actually, let's do that now. Yeah, let's do the edge bit. So for the edge, I am following the straight edges technique here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I did do a tutorial on that. You can check that out later if you want. But yeah, I am doing the straight edges technique, which is making backward forward knots for the edge string here. I feel like that does really help keep my bracelets much straighter, since the strings aren't sort of going out beyond the borders of the bracelet, if that makes sense. And again, you should watch my video in-depth tutorial on that if you do want an in-depth tutorial. I'm just sort of like mentioning it here in passing. But yeah, I do like to use it. I don't use it for every bracelet, but here I decided that I want to. Now again, as I was saying, I do have my pattern on the left, so I can just double check what I'm doing, because sometimes if I look back on the pattern that I already did and I try to determine how the strings are moving based on that, sometimes I make mistakes, because sometimes it can be like a backward forward knot and you just forgot about that and you think it's just a backward knot or something like that, and you can make a mistake because literally every single knot matters, and if you make a mistake you have to undo the knot. But so yeah, I do have the pattern up for reference, but I can see here that I am following the same bit as I was up there. Let me just bring it down a little bit. I'm following this bit here. So the string is at the top. I'm talking about the background string, the sparkly background string. It's at the top, and it's brought all the way to the left until the edge string, at which point it turns around and goes into the sort of like zigzag motion. So, as I said, I more look towards the direction of the string, how the string is moving, which direction it's moving in, and when it stops. So there I can see that it's moving to the left, which means backward knots, and it stops at the edge string. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do a bunch of knots to the left until the edge string. Let me just tighten this knot before I continue. There we go. So I am again fanning out all of my strings. And as I said, each knot matters. Each individual knot matters, because if you make one knot wrong, then your strings aren't pointed in the correct direction. They're already sort of messed up. You might switch 2 strings without even realizing it, and that can lead to a lot of mistakes. So if you do make a mistake, if you do make a wrong knot, it is much better to untie it straight away as soon as you notice it, because fixing your mistakes without untying knots is a headache that you want to avoid. Alright, so I've just done that. Now, again, looking back here, I can see that I've already done this bit as I was talking about before. Now we're going into this bit. So at the top, we have these 2 white strings, which we have here as well. These 2 white strings, they're going to make a knot between them, and then they're going to go into their separate directions. The one on the left is just going to do 2 more knots and then turn around and go in again, and the one on the right is going to go down all the way until it meets this one, the other one here. So let's just do that now. So each individual knot matters, and I get a lot of people asking me all the time, how do you like make your bracelets so perfect? Well, first of all, thank you, I really appreciate that. I don't think I make my bracelets perfect. I'm not gonna lie, I obviously know that I make bracelets pretty well, and I am happy with how I make them, but I do always feel that there is room for improvement with anything, like literally with anything, with any type of skill level you're at, there's always level for improvement. So I don't like to call anything perfect, because I can see mistakes that I make that you probably don't, because I mean, I make them, so I can see them better. That's not the point though. I just wanted to say that to make your bracelets look neat, you have to be very attentive to each individual knot. Like here, for example, I want all my knots to be the exact same sort of shape or size, and I can see that this knot is a little bit bigger than the ones before, so I'm just going to tighten it a little bit extra to make sure that it is the same size. And you have to be attentive to each individual knot. Every single knot that you make, you have to pay close attention to and make sure that it's exactly where you want it to be, and it's exactly the size that you want it to be and the shape that you want it to be. And also make sure that it's the correct knot and that you didn't make a mistake. And if it's not the correct shape, if it's not the correct size, if it's in the wrong place, or if it's the wrong knot altogether, or maybe you just didn't tighten it hard enough, or whatever the situation is, then just, you know, step back, untie it, and do it again. There's no shame in sort of fixing your mistakes. There's no shame in going back. So definitely, I would say, just be attentive to your knots and make sure that you are happy with each individual knot that you are making. Alright, so we did the outline here, as I said, we just did the outline there. Now we're going to go into the inside. So here there was the pink, this is the multicolored string, so it might not be pink anymore, but I think it is on both sides. Yeah, this one's a yellow, but I'm going to be making backward knots. So I'm going to be taking this string, and this one is pink. So the pink one, we're just going to make a little bit of a chevron here, bringing these strings into the center until they meet. I really like this pattern. I think it's really cute, and I'm really happy with the color choices that I made. If you want to see me actually make this bracelet, the beginning of it and doing the color choices, I filmed a vlog, and this was part of that vlog. You can watch me make the color choices. It was a very difficult decision at the time, but I'm very happy with the choices that I made. I think the colors go really well together. It's the same with alphas as well, not just with normal bracelets, it's the same with alphas. Each individual knot has to be great. You have to be happy with each individual knot. And if there's at any point you're unhappy, you can't just think that, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, make a few more rows and maybe it'll like fix itself. Maybe the other knots on the next rows are gonna push it up or push it into position or sort of straighten it out or whatever. It's not gonna happen. Like, trust me. If you are unhappy with the knot as it is, as you're making it, it's not going to get better by making more knots afterwards. It's going to get worse because you're going to make more knots, and then you're going to realize that you still don't like it, and now you can't really fix it because you have to undo all those other knots that you've already made to get to that previous knot. So it's much easier to just untie a knot at the very beginning if you've noticed it and you know that you don't like it, than, you know, putting it off and then having to undo so much more. Trust me, because I've done that. I am telling you from experience. I have had to undo a lot of knots at some point, and I know a lot of people just don't do that. I know a lot of people who, if they make a mistake and then they realize it late, they just will scrap the bracelet or something, because it is really frustrating to have to deal with afterwards. So we just did that V shape as well. Now we're going to go back into the outline, and that white string that we were bringing out now has to go in, and it goes in and it stops at the same level that we stopped the V shape here, so on the same row. So my white string here is going to go do forward knots up until this white string right before this knot. Another tip that I can give is just having a position that is easy to knot in, because I definitely noticed the difference to when I'm knotting on my own and when I'm filming knotting, because filming is generally not that comfortable. I mean, I'm yet to find a setup where I'm really comfortable. It's probably just for me specifically to do with the fact that I don't really have much space in my room, so I can't really position my lights and my tripod the way that I would like. so it makes it a little bit difficult. And I do find that when I am filming, I find it a little bit more difficult to do my knots because I'm not very comfortable. Like right now, this is wobbling, so I'm trying to make sure that, you know, the camera is still in frame and you can see everything. So I am focused on that as well, so it makes knotting a little bit more difficult. Plus it is physically a little bit uncomfortable. So, but I mean, I am experienced, so I don't find this as troubling as you would if you were a beginner. So if you are a beginner, a great tip would be get good lighting, trying to knot under maybe sunlight or just a good light. Don't knot when you're in the dark, because that can first of all hurt your eyes a lot. Second of all, you can miss mistakes if you're making any mistakes. If it's dark, you might not notice them until it's too late. So definitely get some good lighting. Try to always knot when you're comfortable. And so pick a position, sitting position or whatever kind of position where you are comfortable, just so that your arms have space to sort of move. You know, your elbows and stuff, you need to have space to be able to move and to position your knots and to tighten your knots. So definitely have some space around you to do that. Now I'm going, so I've done the white outline for both of these. I'm now going into the background. So the pink background on each side is going to go into the center as well, just like the white just did. And I'm saying all of this from experience as well, because I know how much the way, the context in which you're knotting changes the whole experience. Because if you're knotting in a comfortable position and in great lighting, you're going to have a lovely time and it's going to be very fun. But if you're not in a great position and you can't see very well, then it might be a little bit extra challenging. I like to knot on public transport. I take a bracelet with me all the time. I take a bunch of safety pins so I can pin it onto my jeans, and I take my bracelets everywhere I go. So sometimes I end up knotting in public transport, and while that is a great way to pass time, it can get a little bit challenging. Sometimes I start off and there's not a lot of people on the train, so I start knotting, I sit down, I pin it onto my jeans, I start knotting, and then a lot of people come in, and so I have to have someone sit next to me, and then I don't have as much space as I did when I started out, and now I can't move my arms that much, and it's not a great experience. So usually when a lot of people come in, I stop, because you can't really continue knotting when there's people all around you. It's just a whole different experience that you don't want to deal with. So definitely it makes a big difference to the whole experience. I find knotting to be very relaxing, especially when I'm segment knotting. I like to see how all the different strings interact with one another to create these beautiful shapes. I think it's really beautiful, and I do find it really enjoyable. Especially when I don't know what the colours are going to turn out to be. Like, I was very worried that these colours I won't like, but I'm loving the way that it's turning out. I think it looks really beautiful. I think I'm going to stop here for now. I didn't do that much, but I did do a little bit just to demonstrate how I do it. I think I gave a little bit of tips that just came into my mind as I was doing this. I do have a lot more tips that I can give. So let me know down in the description if you would like to see a sort of like bracelet hacks video, because I think I can come up with a few, one of which I already showed you, the fanning out of the strings. I think that is a pretty great hack that helps you save a lot of time. But yeah, let me know if you'd like to see that. As I said, the pattern will be in the description, so if you want to make this bracelet for yourself, you can. And yeah, I think that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was a little bit more chill, and that's because, well, first of all, I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while where I just sit down and I make a bracelet and talk to you guys, but also I have a really big deadline coming up at university for my dissertation, so I don't really have that much time to film and edit, and this is a kind of chill video where I don't need to spend that much time editing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you would like to see any kind of video like this in the future, and as I said, the bracelet hacks video as well. Let me know if you'd like to see that. And yeah, I post videos on Wednesdays and Sundays, and sometimes I also post bonus videos, so keep your eyes out for that. And I'll see you next time. Bye!